Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to look at AWS KMS part 2. And so in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to go and log in as Elon Musk. As you remember, he is he has administrator access, and we're going to be able to see what he can and can't do with that level of privilege. We're then actually going to go in and demote him. We're going to demote him from administrator access to system administrator. Then we're going to see what the differences are there. And then right at the end, we're going to simulate where John Adams basically has had enough of working for us and he decides to go in and delete and disable the key. How can we recover from that? And, can we access our objects or not? So it's super hands-on. If you've got the time, please log into the console as Mr. Musk. So we're going to save this as well. So Elon does have full administrator access. So let's go over to S3. And we'll go down to my super confidential information. Again, we can test the payslip.txt. We know that that's going to load because it's public and it's using Amazon's keys. Go back to my bucket. And so now if I click on this and click on the link, I should get an error message because I don't have access to that key. However, I am an S3 administrator as well as I have full administrator access to AWS. So I wonder what would happen if I actually just use the AWS open or download buttons. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it will open and do you think you'll be able to download it? Well, if I hit open, it does. It opens the file. It's decrypting it and it's opening it. I can also go through and I can go in and download it. So this is why you should be very, very careful of who you give full admin access to in terms of your AWS account. I could also go into identity access management and I could go and essentially make myself the keys administrator as well as the keys owner. I could go in here, go to encryption key, just go back over to Island, go in and grab this key. And then in here, I can go in and add myself as an administrator. So Elon Musk is now an administrator of this key. And I could go in and I could, add myself as a key user. Let's remove myself as an administrator. And what I'm going to do is going to be a bit cheeky. I'm going to take a bit of a shortcut. I'm going to go back over to groups. And I'm going to go to administrators. And I'm going to go to my permissions. I'm going to attach a policy. And instead of administrator access, what would happen if I'm just a system administrator? So let's attach this policy to the group. And at the same time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and remove this policy. And so essentially, I'm demoting myself from administrator to a system administrator. Okay, so I haven't been logged out. The change has taken effect immediately. If I go into encryption keys right now and I go back over to Island and I want to play with this key, I'm going to click on this key. I'm going to go in and try and add myself as an administrator of this key. And, where's all my users gone? I can't do it because as a system administrator, I don't have the permissions to do this. What about if I want to add myself as a user to this key? I can't do it. I can only add roles because I don't have the permissions to do it. And you also see I'm starting to get errors in authorizing as to who has access to which key. So let's go back over to S3 and see how my permissions have changed. So go back over to S3 and I'm going to go into my super confidential information bucket and let's go ahead and click on the about blank and I'm going to click on the link. I should get the same error. Server-side encryption doesn't have the access to it. If I click back and if I actually go in and hit open, look at that. I no longer have access. As a administrator, I did have access as a system. But as a systems administrator, I don't have access. So you just have to be aware as to who you give, power to. You pretty much want, least privilege. That's what you want to do. You don't want to give people sysadmin. You don't want your sysadmins to all have administrator access to your AWS account because they could go in and view payroll data. Now, of course, when they do stuff like that, it is going to be logged using CloudTrail, so you can set up alerts to stop that, from happening. But you would always want to use least privileges. So as a policy, you probably want to use a system administrator instead of an administrator. I wonder if I can download it. Let's have a look. Nope, access denied. So I'm completely locked out as an administrator, a system administrator from accessing this file. So that's Elon done. So we're looking at one last scenario, which is where John Adams decides that he's had enough working for us and he's going to leave. And just to rub salt into the wounds, he's going to delete his encryption key. Let's see how that scenario plays out. So let's log in as John Adams and delete the key. Now I'm going to go over to IAM and I'm going to go up to encryption keys. And then I'm going to go ahead and change my region to Island. and we can see my key is in here, and I can go to key actions. Now you can see that I can only schedule the key deletion. I can't actually go through and delete it. I can disable it, however. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to disable it first of all, and then I could go in and schedule key deletion. Maybe we'll do that in a little bit, but the key has now been disabled. So if I click up in here, I can schedule key deletion. Now, it says here, deleting a key makes all data unencrypted under that key unrecoverable. KMS enforces a minimum waiting period of 7 days. So I can't just go in and delete it. I'm going to have to wait for 7 days. I'm going to go ahead and schedule deletion for this key. What I'll do is I'll come back in a week and I'll show you how this is going to play out. So that is scheduled for deletion. It has also been disabled. Let's have a look at what happens if I log back in as Thomas Jefferson. So if I log back in as Thomas Jefferson, we know that nothing's going to work because he was completely locked out anyway because he didn't have access to the key and he wasn't an administrator. If I log back in as Elon Musk, he's now a systems administrator, not an administrator, so he would not be able to access this. So I'm going to log back in as my root account user, and what I want to see is whether or not I can view my objects in S3 now that the key has been disabled. Okay, so I've logged in using my root account credentials, and now I'm going to go back over to S3, so I have full root access. Click in here. Let's go ahead and see what happens if I click on this link. There we go. I don't have access to it. If I go back into my bucket and I go ahead and click in here and actually click on the object itself, I will try and download it. Of course, that's not going to work. It's basically saying this key is pending deletion and the key itself has been disabled. And then, of course, if I click on open, I'm going to have a similar error message. So this is the root user now. The root user cannot access this object because the key has been disabled and it's pending deletion. Now, if I was to wait for the full 7 days, that's it. The data's gone. It's unrecoverable. One last thing I want to show you, we've been using this exclusively with S3. You can use it for a whole bunch of other AWS services as well, including EC2. We went into volumes. We can go ahead and create a volume. In here, we can click encrypt this volume, and in here, we can use the master key, John's master key. Of course, this won't work right now because it's been disabled, but we could go ahead and encrypt our EBS volumes. You can use it for things like Redshift as well, etc., etc. And I'll cover what other AWS services you can use with KMS in the KMS summary of this course. And by the way, if you don't get this master key, double check your region. Make sure your EC2 region is in the same region as your master key. And I cannot stress this enough. That is a really important exam topic. Every time you use KMS service, it is on a regional basis. This flies in the face of normal logic with IAM, which is a global service. So do remember that going into your exams.